Good morning, Craig Howard here. I wanted to just share a quick thought with you. I've got to meet some people here fairly shortly, so I can't spend a lot of time this morning. But I was thinking about something I heard a story somebody told me. It was a pastor I used to know, and he was doing a morning radio broadcast all the time. And he was very self-conscious, or he was very conscientious about looking his best when he was in church, not to impress people, but to show how much he respected God. And so he always wore suit and tie when he was in church, and most of the time when he was out visiting in the hospitals or doing things in the community or whatever, he was in a suit and tie. And again, it wasn't to impress people, but it was just he wanted to show people, I want to look my best to honor God. And that really was what he was about, because he wasn't this real good-looking guy or anything like that. He just wanted to look the best that he could for, as God's representative. But one day he was doing a radio show and nobody was around. He was just in a little room, where the equipment was at by himself, and he was in an old scruffy pair of pants, and he had on a shirt and tie, but the tie was just loose and askew and all of that. And he was reading a passage of Scripture that says, it's from Psalm 139, and it says, "O Lord, you have searched me and know me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down. You are acquainted with all my ways. Even before the word is on my tongue. Behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me." And all of a sudden, he was just so aware of the fact that God knew exactly where he was and what he was doing, and God was with him right then, and that he was in the presence of God, that God knew everything about him. All of a sudden, he was so aware of that fact that he straightened up, he buttoned up his shirt collar and straightened his tie and, kind of smoothed his shirt out before he would even finish his radio broadcast, when there was nobody else in the room. But he knew God was there. He knew God was watching him. And you say, well, what's that got to do with anything? Well, I'm not asking you to go put on a shirt and tie. I'm not going to. But I am going to ask you to think about the fact that God is there. Sometimes it seems like when we're going through trying times, when we're going through crisis, when we're going through difficulty, that it tends to bring out the very best in people and also the very worst in people. People become very generous and helpful, as so many people are doing. And I just am so thankful for that. Today there will be hundreds of women, probably mostly women, some men maybe, all over the country sewing masks for people that are in need of them, hospitals and emergency workers and other people that are in need of masks. We've got people that are going to be working here in our community today. Today I've got to go get some elastic from a supplier, from a warehouse, and I'm going to be wearing a mask and wearing gloves, and they're going to bring it out to the car, curbside situation. I call ahead and purchase it. But there are going to be people that are going to be cutting that elastic and getting it to the other people. There are people that have taken furnace filters apart and got them all cleaned and bagged and ready to be made into masks, and other people that are doing other things, and people that are buying lunch for emergency service personnel. I saw Emerald Lagasse yesterday fixed dinner for like 100 or so emergency room workers in his town there, in his city. People are doing a lot of really good things there, and God sees all of that. God sees the good. It brings out the best in people, but sometimes it brings out the worst in people, where people are griping and complaining and whining and just hurting one another, attacking one another, and taking advantage of one another, and just saying bad things about one another, and just being rude and crude and socially unattractive. And I want you to know, God sees that too. God sees that too. I want to remind you of this verse once again. "O Lord, you have searched me and know me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it altogether. Think about what you do and what you say as you go through this day. Remember that God is right there and hears every word and sees everything and even knows your thoughts. And as you go through this day, let's straighten up and try to honor Him in everything that we do, okay? I hope you have a wonderful day today, and I hope you take the opportunity that God gives you today to be a blessing somewhere along the way. God bless.